And share the screen. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about hypothesis, which is a social annotation tool. And in general, there's two ways of using hypothesis. One is using it within the LMS, and that's what we're going to be focusing on here. We did a workshop on using outside of that a bit before, and there is a link there, which if anyone wants it, let me know and I'll share the link. It's been a while, but because most people really have found it much more useful to use hypothesis within the LMS, which now is Brightspace. We're going to talk about some examples of use, and then you're going to work on creating your own assignments in Brightspace. So if you're watching the video later, open up Brightspace so you can follow along and try it yourself. And first, we should talk about what it is. It's a social annotation tool where you can embed discussions directly in a document where students can read something and then provide comments on it. And it's a threaded discussion forum where they can basically comment on each other's comments. And the comments can be done in text. They could be done with videos. They can be done with audios. They could be done with images and so forth. And the annotations could be set public, private, or restricted to a group. But when you're doing it in general, this is true. But when you're doing it within Brightspace, you generally would not have separate groups. Although if you have groups set up in your class, then you could use it that way. And basically, private comments are ones that the students themselves would see and no one else. Public or restricted to the class group would be done for everybody. And the nice thing about doing this within Brightspace is that unlike the standalone version of Hypothesis, which is a very effective tool, students don't have to create an account. They don't have to log into Hypothesis. It's all done automatically. And as far as they're concerned, it's just part of the Brightspace environment that they're working with. And any comments that you post could be tagged, and the tags could be done to curate material, or they could be done for some type of analysis. For example, if you have a class where students are studying structure of arguments, you could have different tags for different types of arguments that are being used, et cetera. So whatever is appropriate for your class, you could create a set of group tags and ask students to tag the post, to tag the comments to identify the type of thing that they're commenting on. And this could be used for online learning, but you can also use it for in-class learning. And I've used this both in online classes and in face-to-face classes. And the materials we comment could either be PDFs that are right within the course, or they could be links to websites outside of the class. One of the other ways in which I've used this is for peer review. For example, for I think 5 years now in the capstone course in economics, students have used this where they write up chapters, or groups of students will write a chapter, and then the other groups of students will comment on the chapter. So they're leaving feedback to each other. Some of the benefits are that when students are asked to read, one of the things that surveys have shown is that fewer and fewer students read very much anymore. To some extent, students are relying on AI summaries for work. And in general, the proportion of students that have read a whole book for fun in the past year has declined drastically over the last 5 to 10 years. So in general, students do read less, and that shows up when you analyze reading within the LMS documentation, within the LMS statistics as well. And one of the nice things, when I used to have readings where students would participate in a discussion, either in an online or a face-to-face class, is that they would often provide very superficial comments that suggested maybe they had read the abstract, maybe they were guessing at what the article was about, And it tended not to be a very good discussion with not a very high level of analysis in this. But when students are adding comments directly to the text, at the very least, it ensures that they've read that text. And it forces a little bit more close reading, because when they're reading it, they're thinking about what they could comment on and how they could address it. And so it encourages close reading skills. It encourages perhaps a little bit more critical thinking, and it gives students an opportunity to connect what they're learning in the class with the reading content. And also, it's a nice way to have students engage with each other and also the instructor, because you can also provide comments as well. And this could be used for things besides just commenting on readings. You could use it, for example, to post a syllabus where students can ask questions. You can use it with any of your course documents, including assignments, for example, where students could post questions about it that you could then respond to, and so forth. And it's a nice way of giving more chances for more opportunities for interaction outside of class time. Now, anything that you upload has to be if it's a PDF, has to be in OCR format. Basically, it has to have a text layer. If you just upload a scan of the document, among other things, that's not accessible, which will be a violation of, well, which even now is a violation of the ADA, but that's going to be a bit stricter once we move up to April 2026 with the new Title II requirements. You could also, and if it's not searchable, by the way, if it's not something that's screen readable, you could always use Adobe Acrobat or some other package to OCR it, to convert it into a readable document. But make sure that it meets accessibility. In general, you shouldn't be posting readings that are just scans of text or pictures of text anyway. They should be accessible documents. So this perhaps might encourage some better use in terms of accessibility. You could link to a website article, but one thing that some instructors have done without thinking about it is they have subscriptions to the New York Times or the Washington Post or some other article, and they just include a link to that in the class, which would be fine if students also had a link to that article, or if it was perhaps shared as a gift article when that's possible. So make sure that anything that you provide links to are things that are accessible by students without them having to engage in a subscription. Now, if it's a subscription, this is a little bit questionable in terms of copyright, but you could download the article as a PDF and post it. I know that's a common practice, although again, it's better if you do have copyright clearance on these things, if it's something that is in the public domain or Creative Commons. Okay, so when you come up with these activities, think about how you're going to use it. Is it going to replace a discussion? How are you going to assess it? And in general, it's probably better to keep this, as well as pretty much anything else we include, as being fairly low stakes. Now, let's go through the process. Before we actually do this, just to show you what types of things you can link to, you could provide a URL. You could provide a PDF that's already stored in Brightspace as a document. You could have a PDF in Google Drive, or you could just have it in your download folder and then use the Google Drive option. It also has an interface with JSTOR. So if it's a publicly available JSTOR article that we have access to through the library, you could directly comment on it through that. If you're using OneDrive, you could store it there, or you could, again, directly upload a PDF. And also now there is a capability of including videos, but the annotation isn't done of the video itself. It's done to the scrolling transcript. So if you want to leave an annotation on a YouTube video while watching it, basically you just flag the transcript and leave the annotation right there, and then the video will resume. So we'll go through each of this. Once you've done that, you add a title and then it's available. And well, so now let's jump over to Brightspace. And I'm going to show you an example in the SELP group. We have a hypothesis workshop there. And before you create your own, if you could go to the SELP group, and click on the link right on the left to Hypothesis Workshop, you'll see there are a few things we've done in past workshops. One was around the time when we were doing a reading group on Sarah Rose Kavanagh's book. We posted a PDF that she had provided. Here's a link to an article by David Yeager and others. Here's another one by David Yeager and Dweck and Michael Gerlich. This was an article that came out in January that people found somewhat interesting on the impacts of cognitive offloading and the future of critical thinking in a world where students are actively using AI. And here's something from a talk that Anna Mill gave earlier. But let's take a look at this. Just click on this, and this is what it looks like as a student, except students won't see the submit grade thing here. And this is now, oh, here it is. Okay. So, or is it? Yeah, it is still here. Okay. You can log in if you want, but you don't have to. This is a website containing the article. And so if there are no annotations, but let's say we wanted to, let's say we were reading this carefully and slowly, and we wanted to just throw in a comment about adaptive learning platforms. When we do it, we just highlight it, we drag the mouse along it, and then you could highlight it, in which case you'll just see that as something. It won't be highlighted for the class. But if you click annotate, it now opens up this little window on the side. And here, let's say, I'll just say, this is a comment about adaptive learning platforms and AI, let's say, without having really looked at what the context is. And then you have two options. And here's where you would add tags. So if you wanted to add a tag, we could create one on adaptive learning, let's say. And then those tags would be searchable. So if you click on the tag, it will show you all the posts that refer to that. And then just some of the other things here. You do have boldface, you do have italics. You can use a quote to do the indentations things. You can insert a link, you can insert an image, and you also have the ability to insert LaTeX. So if you are teaching, say, a chemistry class or a math course or a stat class or an economics class where you're going to use math symbols, you could directly do that. So for example, I could type in here, let's say beta sub 1, 0, plus, let's say, beta sub 1, x, and then sub I, and then without that extra slash at the end. And now what will happen is when I post this, it's going to show up as, apparently something went wrong. Did I get the slashes wrong? Can I edit that? I think yeah, so I can edit it. And I think the slash, I haven't typed LaTeX in directly in a while. Let's try this. I think this might do it. And it did not. So something is going wrong, and maybe it's because of the parentheses. One more time. I know I have done this before, so this is kind of unfortunate that I tried doing it now and not having it work. And I think this slash was correct. Well, in any case, in principle, that should work. But it's showing you the LaTeX and not the symbols. So I'm not sure what I did wrong, and forget that comment. But if we do edit it, we get, all these other tools. So we can do a lot of the basic markup. And here, these are the people it's shared to. So you can leave a comment for a specific person and tag the person so they'll see that they were tagged in that. And then we'll just post this, but I'm going to get rid of that crap because that just looks bad. Okay. So, and it should have been adaptive learning, not adaptive learning. But then when other students see it, they can come in and they'll see all the annotations. They just click on it and it pops up. Try leaving an annotation on any of those documents in there just to see how it works.
Would we be able to see your comment in our screen?
You should be able to, or you should if you open this document. the AI tools in society. You should see it as highlighted and then,
Oh, yes, I do now. I had to update.
okay, oh yeah, because if it was already open, it was, yeah. And then if you could comment on it, you could, leave comments on comments and so forth. And so that's basically how it's done. It works kind of nicely. And one other thing I will show, because this is something fairly new. This is a feature that only came out within the last year. And that is, if we go back here, we go back up here. I've got this all covered again. Control Shift Alt H, Control Alt Shift. There we go. Okay, so now if we go back up to here, we go back to the workshop, and then if we go scroll down to show you how it works with the video once that loads. This was something I just tried last night, and I just grabbed one of the workshops from yesterday, which was one that Carrie did. And there we go. So it did some errors on the translation, but when you play it, what it will do is it's not going to share the audio. Okay.
Designers on campus. Today I created a session called Message Received.
And so what you can do is, while you're watching it, you could just do exactly the same thing right in the transcript. So and again, you can pause the video when you do that if you don't want to miss other things, and you can just leave annotations directly there. So as long as the videos are public videos that can be shared, and as long as they have a transcript, and virtually all the audio, all the publicly shared videos will have transcripts, because if you don't provide a transcript, YouTube will generate one, and does that reasonably well. So it's just another type of thing you can share. And that's a nice feature, because we do use videos much more. And there's so many high quality videos out there in virtually all disciplines. Okay, so let's create one. And if you could do the same, go to your own course, and I'll do one right in here. I'm going to hop back up to I'm going to hop right back up to here, to the hypothesis workshop. And let's say, well, this is what you would do. Wait a second, just to get in, of course. And you basically don't go to whichever folder, whichever module you'd like it to be in. And if you don't like where it is, you can always move it later. And to create one, you would just click on existing activities and scroll down until you see hypothesis reading. And this was something that was new in January here. They had upgraded it, but they hadn't updated the LTI integration in Oswego until January. And this makes it so much easier. We used to have to put a whole string of text in, and it was a little bit tedious. But now you click hypothesis reading, and then it's going to ask you what type of content you want. Let's say, anyone have a web page they'd like to provide a link to?
Academic integrity.
Okay, and so.
It's actually, never mind. It's an article, it's not a web page. Okay.
Well, but that's okay too. So let's say academic. Let's say Oswego. Okay, here is the academic integrity policy. And so there we go. So we can grab that URL and just go over here and paste it in. There, and then we change the title and we'll say academic integrity policy at Oswego. And then if you want, you could do auto grading where you can enable automatic participation grading just to keep track of how many things people post and assign grades to that. You could make it a group assignment where you'd have, if you have broken your class up into groups, you would just assign the readings or this hypothesis assignment to the specific groups that you want to do it, or it could be the same one across all groups, or you could have separate ones for individual groups. There aren't any groups in, well, actually, I think we do have groups in here. So we'll authorize that. I think don't we have, I think we do. So our group sets here are, well, we only have one for cult. So we could assign this just to the cult group, for example. But we could uncheck that because we'll just do it anyway. And so this will be, we'll click continue. And here it is. So now down at the bottom, there is now an academic integrity policy at Oswego thing where you can go in and comment on it.
I must have missed something, because I didn't get the step where I give it a name.
Oh, that's right at the top. If we go back, we can create another one. Let's go back and create a new one, and we will do, well, let's try something different. And then I think you can still edit it. If you right click on it, there should be an option. If you get back to where it's listed in Brightspace and not in the actual window. Yeah, if you go. Yeah, I think you're out. Oh, there it is. Yeah, click right on there. Okay, and now if you, I think you can do it right here. If you do the drop down and edit the title. That will do it. But it was right at the top.
I don't know if I got the link in there.
Well, click open in new window and let's just see. There it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there you could have students comment on it. You could ask them to provide some comments or provide some examples of each of the types of academic integrity violations where they leave comments or something, you know. So it's become really easy to use, and it's so easy for students to work with because as far as they're concerned, it's just part of Brightspace. They just go there, they see it, they click on the link, they highlight things, and they leave comments. The only problem I've ever had with it was one student insisting on setting up their comments to be private, so only they could see them. And since I did give them a small, I think it was 5% of the grade for their comments on these things, she kept losing that and asking why. I said, well, you haven't commented. And then she went back and changed them to be public. But so I could go back and edit it because I could see when she posted them, it was just, she was saving them for herself and not sharing them with the class, which kind of defeated the purpose. But that's basically it. And let's say we want to do it for YouTube. Let's go over to YouTube. Oops. Let's say we wanted to grab one of the, let me change to the self workshops. Switch account, add account. Oh, do I remember the password? Let me see. (16-character) passwords are a bit harder to remember. And of course, we have to authenticate just because. To be fair, I'm setting up my courses at Duke, and I did have to authenticate once there, and that will be good for the next 3 months. Okay, so if we go here and we look at some of the videos that, for example, workshop videos, we'll go to YouTube Studio and, well, we could take the overview of embedded math tutoring video. So let's take a look at this. And Why is that not? Why is it not showing me the link to it? Let's try this again. Here we go, content. Embedded tutoring. So what we're going to do is go here. Well, I'm just going to get the shareable link and I'm going to go back over to Hypothesis. And now I'm going to create another assignment, except this is a Hypothesis reading assignment. And we're going to put in that URL. We could do it with the URL, but let's do it with a YouTube thing because that is set up to read the transcripts correctly. And there we go, and continue. And this would be embedded. It's right up there at the top. And I missed that too. So one way of doing it is to do the edit title thing when you see the link. The other, I'll show you another way of doing it too, because this is something it's really easy to forget. Another way of doing it is if you go down to this, you can right click, you can go over here. Well, edit properties in place would also do it. So there, one of the properties is the title and you could just change it there. And that's how I normally do it. And now, you know, if we, let me refresh the screen. And now if we click on that, we'll see the transcript from the embedded tutoring. Oops. Wrong link, I think. Let's try that again. Hypothesis workshop. And I'll try to click on the right one this time. The embedded math tutoring. And there it is. And here is a transcript. So you could listen to it, wait until there's something you want to comment on, pause it. And let's do that.
Thank you. I'll share my screen.
Let's say we want to jump ahead a little bit. And then we can just, I'm not going to comment anything very insightful, but just to show how it works, I'm going to click on this, annotate, and click on how often are these review sessions? And then, you know, et cetera. With a question mark, I suppose, could be more appropriate. And there we go. And so it's really easy to embed videos or text or PDFs or, you know, if you wanted to, I haven't actually done this, but we could always have chosen the, let's try it one more time. We're going to do existing activities.
I have a question about
Sure.
that. Why is it existing activities?
It's just the way Brightspace is structured. It's not one of the internal Brightspace things. It's connected through an LTI. So it's an external tool that is linked to. And there's a lot of them in here. So the checklists are existing activities. The Alex math stuff is, assignments are existing activities. So some of them are built in, discussions are. So these are things that exist well, they're not created directly. So this is where you upload or create new content. These are things that already exist elsewhere, either from outside or from within Brightspace, such as the checklist discussions and so forth. You could also link to Google Drive files or put in videos, put in Google Meet connections. Let's try, and again, I haven't tried this. Let's try JSTOR. And you would just put in a link to, oh, you can't search it. We'd have to go in and search it. But I was hoping there might be a search tool. That would probably be a little too much to ask. But, you know, if you search JSTOR and you find articles that we have access to, you just put in the URL for it, and then that will be embedded right within the course. So it's a really great way of giving students readings where you can kind of make sure that they actually do read the things and they comment on it. And the quality of the discussions I found to be dramatically better when they are actually doing it in the readings themselves and interacting with each other. Because on a discussion forum, the quality of those things, you can nudge students to be a little bit, provide more detail or a little bit more critical thinking and so forth. But they're much more likely to do it just naturally when it's right in front of them. It's hard to avoid commenting on the actual arguments when the arguments are right there on the page that they're commenting on. And the other thing about it is students find it much more interesting too, especially because they get the content, the comments from other students in the context of what they're commenting on. Because when a student will post some comments on a discussion board, it's not always entirely clear to others what part of the article they might have been commenting on, or what part of the arguments they're commenting on. But when it's right in the context of the reading, it just makes it a bit more focused, and that makes the discussions in general better. And students love it. And especially they've enjoyed it for peer review type things where the students are providing feedback to each other. And for those things, I just grade it based on the number of substantive comments they provide. There's a minimum number, and most students end up doing, 20 to 50% more than the minimum number of feedback comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a PDF article in an existing class. Can we add hypothesis to that existing article?
Sure. Let's try that. What would be easiest, you're not in Zoom, are you? I was going to say we could try sharing the screen. I don't have many PDFs, but yeah, let's try it and let's see. And what you would do there, I'll go through the steps here and you can make the actual connection to the article. So you would go to existing activities and go to hypothesis. And one of the options there is, again, in D2L. So you would go to D2L, and then this would show you all the folders that are there. And let me see, there may be one here. Let's see, I think there may be some old content here. Here we are. Here's, there are no files in that. It must be an HTML document. But if you have a PDF that's stored in Brightspace, you can look through each of the folders containing that. Let me see if maybe there's something here. No. No. Okay, so there are some folders there, but they're not containing PDFs. They probably all contain HTML. But if you have a PDF article, and is that working for you? Have you been
Yes.
able? And once you find it, you just link to it and it'll be exactly the same as it would be for any other one. One other thing we should do is let's just find another article to show how you could upload a document if you don't want to put it in separately. Let's go to scholar.google.com. And let's say we want to do, oh, here's some recommended articles. Effects of high school remediation on long-run educational attainment. Let's just take a look at that and let's see if that's downloadable. It is. And I'll just grab the title here for convenience. And I'm going to download that. And so now it's going to be in the download folder on this computer. And so when I go to hypothesis, I'm going to go back to the assignment here. And I'm going to add, in this case, because it's a PDF that's on my computer, I'm going to I'm going to store it in Google Drive. But the nice thing about this is I will go into this and let's see, and it should work. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to, if you scroll up, these are PDFs I already have in there, but you have an option of doing an upload. So once you have a PDF in your download folder, you could upload this, and I'm going to select a file from the device, and I'm going to go to downloads, and there is that file. And so I'm just going to select that, open it, and it's going to bring it right in. And then I'm going to change the assignment to be the title. Now, what I would normally do is I would put in the full citation with, the journal article, the year, the date, and all of that, and then press continue. And now that has just become a hypothesis assignment. And there it is. So it's, once you, as long as you have access to something in a PDF form, you can upload it. Now, one of the things that in that capstone course, I mentioned that I have students using it for peer review on each other's chapters. But they also present papers every week. At the first day of the semester, they pick the topics they're going to be working on. And one of the things I have to do is find journal articles or working papers on those topics and share it with them. And to make sure that each group will be presenting, typically groups of 2 or 3 people, will be presenting a paper every week when the class meets. But before that, to make the discussion more engaged and to have people coming in better prepared, I have them all comment on each of the readings they're going to be focusing on that week by uploading it to Brightspace. And that way they get to already come in prep for a discussion. And again, it's worked really, really well. And I've been really pleased with it, and students have found it very helpful. And generally, they said they wish that more instructors would use Hypothesis for these types of things. So
I enjoyed using something similar for a class that I recently took. And it did
was it
make,
Perusal? Or?
yes.
We have Perusal too, and that can work. The reason I like Hypothesis a little bit more is it's a little bit more seamless, because with Perusal, they actually exit. They're really using the Hypothesis tools and the cloud work, but it looks like it's part of Brightspace. So it doesn't make it feel like a separate tool. Perusal, all the content that you have is in a separate tool. There's a separate gradebook and the other assets. And basically it feels like they're jumping out of Brightspace to work in Perusal and coming back. And it's a wonderful tool. And if we stop paying for Hypothesis here, we might very well end up moving to Perusal. And it is a really good alternative. It just strikes me as being a little bit less seamless. And maybe you've worked with it. I've worked with it in terms of experimentation, but I've never taken a course with it.
I've used it as a student, but not as an instructor. So I don't know how it would be to like set it up.
It's pretty easy to set up. It's basically you do the same type of thing. You just upload it. You can enable grading. You can have some automated grading within it as well. And it can connect to the Brightspace gradebook, as can this. But most people just do things like count the number of posts or something, because it's pretty easy to do with that. It's worth trying both of them and seeing what you like more. And again, the advantage of Perusal is that it's already available for everyone for free. And the reason why we have to pay for Hypothesis is that it's a nonprofit corporation, but its only funding comes through subscriptions of colleges and universities. With Perusal, Perusal was started as a venture which actually shares textbooks. So what happens is that textbook publishers will essentially license their content, and Perusal gets access to the readings as a tool, basically for a cut of the price. So people actually are buying the readings or the textbooks they're using directly in there. And so it's a little bit different that way. It's a different marketing structure. But again, that means that it is free for colleges and universities. And you can upload any common Creative Commons license materials or any OER materials to it. But, if you wanted to use textbook readings, whatever, then students would have to pay for that, or they buy a license which would work through that. So. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Play with it a bit more, see how it goes. Any other thoughts, reactions?
Oh, can you tell me, how would I know the PDF that I just used to add the Hypothesis to? How would I know if it is the right format that you mentioned?
Basically, one simple way of testing it is if you can. Well, one thing you can do is if you can copy and paste text from it into a document, then it's then it has a text layer. If it's just an image, it won't. It'll just, you won't be able to
Oh,
highlight blocks of it. But the other thing you could do is you could always try uploading it and seeing if you can comment on it. If you try blocking out some text to annotate it and it won't let you do that, then it doesn't have a text layer. It's just an image.
then this worked. I
Mhm.
was able to annotate it.
And that's probably the most common thing that people do if they have some really old scans of papers. You know, if people had just Xerox things or just run it through a scanner and pasted it and saved it as a PDF without doing some OCR on it, you don't have any text that is recognized by the reader. So are you thinking about using this summer?
Yes, I am gonna use it in the EOP summer program. And also for the tutor training class, we're currently having them reading some articles and then like writing a Brightspace post, discussion post about it, so I think I'm gonna have them do the hypothesis annotations instead.
And once you have them do it, you can search by the student name and see all their posts.
Mhm.
And it's pretty easy to scan through their individual posts. And you can just go student by student to do that. And I tend to do it that way, but you can also have it do some grading automatically that will be set up as a Brightspace grading column.
Mhm.
At one point it was limited, so it had to be a scale of 0 to 10. No matter what you put in as a number of points. I think they fixed that since then, but I haven't tried it, so. But I usually just create my own column and just do it manually. It's not really that, that much work. Okay, well, we'll stop the recording, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to help you with it.
Oh, so I have a question.
Oh, sure.
If we make a new PDF, will it just go into the right format now? Like if we're using the updated Adobe?
It depends on, yeah, as long as it's not just an image of the text. As if you do something and you print it from Word or from Google Drive to a PDF, or if you use a PDF printer, then it will be okay.
Okay, so you have to save it to the PDF. You can't like scan it and email it to yourself and use the image.
In general, it depends on typically not. So if you're just doing a scan of the text, it will generally create it as an image, although most scanning systems also have those optical character recognition built into them. And it will, if you tell it to convert it into text, it will, but it will not always put things in the correct reading order or put in headers or other things. So it's much better to do it, directly in Word or in Google Docs or something, and save it ultimately as a PDF or print it to a PDF. If you're printing text as a PDF from pretty much any platform, it should be readable.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.